What if I told you that the greatest love stories aren't always the ones with happy endings? What if the most beautiful love is the one that teaches us to let go? The encounter that changed everything. The rain was falling like bullets that October evening when Sarah first saw him. She was rushing through the hospital corridors, her white coat trailing behind her like a guardian angel's wings, when she collided with a man carrying a bouquet of yellow sunflowers, her grandmother's favorite. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, watching the petals scatter across the polished floor like fallen stars. When she looked up, she met the kindest brown eyes she had ever seen. They belonged to a man about her age, with gentle hands that were already gathering the fallen flowers with the same care one might handle broken dreams. "No harm done," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that seemed to chase away the hospital's cold sterility. "These were for my mother anyway. She always said flowers are more beautiful when they've been through a little chaos." That was David. And that moment, surrounded by scattered sunflowers and the antiseptic smell of hope and healing, was when Sarah's carefully ordered world began to shift on its axis. When two souls recognize each other. They met again 3 days later at the same hospital. Sarah was ending her shift as a pediatric nurse, and David was beginning his visit with his mother, who was battling late-stage cancer. This time he brought white roses. "My mother wants to meet the angel who helped gather her flowers," he said with a smile that could have powered the entire ICU. His mother, Elena, was a woman whose spirit seemed too large for her fragile body. Her eyes sparkled with the same warmth as her son's, and when she took Sarah's hand, her grip was surprisingly strong. "You have healer's hands," Elena whispered, "and my son has been talking about your eyes for 3 days straight." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks, but David just laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. From that day forward, David came to the hospital every evening at 6 p.m. Sometimes he brought flowers for his mother, sometimes books to read aloud, and always, he brought that smile that made Sarah forget about her exhaustion, her student loans, and the weight of caring for children who were fighting battles too big for their small bodies. The Garden of Moments. What started as brief conversations in hospital hallways bloomed into long walks through Central Park. David was a photographer who saw beauty in the spaces between shadows. Sarah was a healer who found poetry in the rhythm of heartbeats. He showed her how to see the world through his lens, how morning light could transform an ordinary bench into something magical, how rain created patterns on windows that looked like abstract art, how her laugh sounded like the best song he'd ever heard. She showed him how to find hope in small victories, how a child's first steps after surgery were worth more than any photograph, how holding someone's hand during their darkest moment could be an act of profound courage, how love could be medicine for wounds that couldn't be seen. Their first kiss happened on a Tuesday in November, under a street lamp that flickered like a shy star. Sarah had just finished a double shift, and David had spent the day editing photos for his upcoming exhibition. They were both exhausted, both running on coffee and stubborn determination, but when their eyes met, the rest of the world faded away. "I never believed in love at first sight," David whispered against her lips. "Neither did I," Sarah whispered back. "But I believe in love at every sight after that first one." The shadow that changed everything. Elena passed away on a cold February morning, with David holding one hand and Sarah holding the other. Her last words were for her son. "Don't you dare let fear keep you from loving completely." Grief hit David like a tidal wave. The man who had found beauty in shadows suddenly couldn't bear to pick up his camera. The photographer who had shown Sarah magic in ordinary moments became a ghost haunting his own life. Sarah tried to hold him together, but grief is not something that can be healed with medicine or mended with gentle words. It's a storm that must be weathered alone, even when you're surrounded by love. For weeks, David withdrew. He stopped coming to their favorite coffee shop. He didn't answer Sarah's calls. He moved through his days like a man underwater, everything muffled and distant. Sarah's heart broke watching him disappear, but she understood. She had seen enough loss in her work to know that sometimes love means giving someone the space to fall apart before they can rebuild themselves. The photograph that revealed everything. 2 months after Elena's death, David finally called Sarah. His voice was different, older, somehow, but clearer. "I have something to show you," he said. They met at his studio, a converted loft filled with photographs that captured the soul of the city. But in the center of the room, displayed on an easel like a prayer, was a photograph Sarah had never seen before. It was taken the day they met, Sarah kneeling on the hospital floor, gathering sunflower petals, her face illuminated by the overhead lights. But what took Sarah's breath away wasn't her own image. It was what the photograph captured that she had never noticed. David in the background, his face already transformed by something that looked remarkably like love. "I took this before I even talked to you," David said quietly. "I was there to photograph the hospital's new wing for a magazine article, but when I saw you, I knew I was looking at the rest of my life." Tears blurred Sarah's vision. "David, I need to tell you something," he continued, his voice steady but his hands shaking. "Before I met you, before my mother got sick, I was diagnosed with the same genetic condition that killed her. It's not a matter of if, Sarah. It's a matter of when." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. "How long?" "The doctors say maybe 5 years if I'm lucky. 2 if I'm not." The choice that defines love. The rational part of Sarah's mind screamed at her to run. She was only 26. She had her whole life ahead of her. Why would she choose to love someone she was destined to lose? But love isn't rational. Love is choosing to plant a garden even when you know winter is coming. Love is deciding that some experiences are worth having even if they break your heart. "Then we have 5 years to fit in a lifetime," Sarah said, taking his hands in hers. David searched her eyes. "You would do that, knowing how this ends?" "David," Sarah said, her voice strong despite her tears, "all love stories end the same way. The only difference is timing. I'd rather have 5 years of extraordinary with you than 50 years of ordinary without you." The years that counted. They lived those years like people who knew the value of time. They traveled to places that took David's breath away and gave Sarah stories to last a lifetime. They had quiet Sunday mornings and loud Friday nights. They fought about silly things and made up with laughter and kisses. David's photography exhibition was titled "Love in the Time of Letting Go." Every image told part of their story. Sarah reading to children in the hospital, their hands intertwined during a movie, her sleeping face in morning light, their shadows walking together down endless streets. Sarah left the hospital to become a private nurse, wanting to spend every possible moment with David. They were married in Elena's garden, surrounded by sunflowers and the people who had learned to love them as a unit, a single story told in 2 voices. The disease progressed slowly at first, then all at once. But David faced it the way he had faced everything else, with grace, with humor, and with a camera in his hands until the very end. The goodbye that was really a hello. David died on a Tuesday in spring, with Sarah holding his hand and sunlight streaming through their bedroom window. His last photograph, taken just days before, was of Sarah's hands, the healer's hands his mother had recognized years before. At his funeral, Sarah spoke about love that transcends time, about how some people change your life so completely that losing them doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like being trusted with something precious to carry forward. "David taught me that love isn't measured in years," she said to the gathering of friends, family, and strangers whose lives have been touched by their story. "It's measured in moments of connection, in the courage to be vulnerable, in the choice to keep choosing each other every single day." The legacy of letting go. Today, Sarah runs a foundation that provides photography equipment to children in hospitals, teaching them to find beauty in difficult circumstances. Every camera comes with a note. See the magic in ordinary moments. She never remarried, not because she couldn't love again, but because she learned that some love stories are complete exactly as they are. David didn't leave her with a broken heart. He left her with a heart that knew its own capacity for extraordinary love. Sometimes, on quiet Tuesday evenings, Sarah looks at their photographs and remembers Elena's last words. "Don't you dare let fear keep you from loving completely." She didn't, and neither did he. And that choice to love fully despite knowing the cost, is the reason their story left everyone in tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of recognition. Because somewhere in their story, we all see the love we hope to be brave enough to choose, the love that teaches us that the most beautiful things in life are often the most fragile, and the most precious gifts are the ones we're destined to let go. After all, isn't it better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all? David and Sarah would tell you that the answer is yes, 1,000 times yes.